E ka mana, e ka rau, e ka takata o Waikirikiri, tēnā koutou katoa. E mihi atu ki a Rakanui Rawa, ki a Papatūānuku, te huri ki te whare, te wharau I tātou tēnā koe, ka piti hono, tatai hono, rātou, te hukumate ki a rātou, ka apiti hono, tatai hono, tātou, te huka ora ki a tātou, Māori ora ki a tātou. To the powers and voices and people of Waikirikiri, Selwyn, greetings to the sky and the land that we're on and the building that we're in. We acknowledge this place, and to those that have gone before and those that are alive now, we are bound together. Let us embark on this meeting and serve the citizens of Selwyn. The Councillor affirmation, let us affirm today that we as councillors will work together to serve the citizens of Selwyn District, to always use our gifts of understanding, courage, common sense, wisdom and integrity in all our discussions, dealings and decisions so that we may solve problems effectively. May we always recognise each other's values and opinions, be fair-minded and ready to listen to each other's point of view. In our dealings with each other, let us always be open to the truth of others and ready to seek agreement, slow to take offence and always prepared to forgive. May we always work to enhance the well-being of Selwyn District and its communities. We will. So welcome to Council meeting 11th of September 2024. We've got 3 apologies for today. Councillor Epiham, Miller and Glidden aren't with us. Have a move and seconder that we accept those apologies. Thanks Bob and Deborah. Any discussion on that? All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Is there any conflicts of interest people would like to raise for today's meeting that haven't already been raised on the conflicts register? No, if anything comes up during the meeting that you note, please just make the meeting aware, and there's no extraordinary business that isn't already on the agenda. Today we start with 2 members of the public coming to talk to us, and first up we've got Catherine Jones from the Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust. If you'd like to come to the end of the room, Catherine, and following that will be Frankie Hinson, who's coming to talk to us about Speaking for the Planet 2024. But first up, Catherine is speaking on the Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust. I understand there's some slides and stuff to be presented as well. So Catherine, thank you for joining us. You've got about 10 minutes for this conversation and I'll hand the floor to you. You just need to press the right hand button on the microphone and your mic will be on.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Catherine Jones tōku ingoa. I'm Chief Executive of the Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do. The Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust is one of the best kept secrets in Canterbury and has been for the last 40 years, but we're on a mission to change that at the moment, and part of our mission is to ensure that all of our regions and our cities understand and know the importance of the work that we do. Spacebar. That helps if I can follow instructions. Who are we and why are we here? So we've been empowering Christchurch's disabled community since 1979. Laura Ferguson herself opened up our first main facility in 1979 in Ilam, which is just adjacent to Jelly Park, where we provided accommodation for about 30 young people who had disabilities, who had nowhere else to live at the time, and their only alternative was living in aged residential care. We're uniquely comprehensive. We're the only provider in the South Island that provides a full spectrum of services for people with traumatic brain injury, so we're quite unique in that fact. Anyone who has sustained a concussion right through to a major disability following injury and who require 24-hour support. We're a respected employer within the city, and we employ over 240 staff who are based in Christchurch. When I say based in Christchurch, they are spread out over the Canterbury region. So we're just here to share our journey today with you, raise awareness and seek your continued support for the vital work that we do. So why do we exist? Traumatic brain injury. One occurs every 15 minutes in New Zealand. It can happen to anyone, any of us, at any time and at any age. More people are diagnosed with brain injury each year than they are with cancer. And over 50% of people experiencing traumatic brain injury are aged between 15 and 34. So a very young population of people suffering these traumatic brain injuries. So what's the cause? So concussion, that's very well known. People talk about concussion and associate that with brain injury. Whiplash can cause brain injury. You don't actually have to bang your head to sustain a brain injury. Building, construction sites, falls, injuries, things falling on top of people. Assault is a very common cause of brain injury. Falling, car accidents, and also failed suicide attempts where people have suffered a hypoxic brain injury, which means they've had a lack of oxygen to their brain. The social impact of traumatic brain injury is one that is really hidden within society, I believe. Many people that have a TBI look completely normal to you and I. However, they have a major lifelong disability that impacts on everything that they do. They can become socially isolated, they can have some behavioural changes, they can lose their jobs, they can lose their families and the social networks that sustain them well in the community. People who've suffered a traumatic brain injury can also be victimised and are at risk of substance abuse. They become very vulnerable if they're living unsupported in the community. 73% of youth offenders in detention at Te Puna Wai have had at least one brain injury, and most of them before the age of 5 years old. Youth offenders aged 15 to 24 years account for 40% of criminal justice apprehensions, so that you can make the connection there in terms of the impact of traumatic brain injury at a very young age. So how do we help? So our team is made up of 240 specialised staff, and we have a huge interdisciplinary team of professionals who, this is their whole mission. This is the thing that they do, their passion. They are occupational therapists, physiotherapists, psychologists, neuropsychologists, social workers, dietitians, speech and language therapists. We support over 1,000 clients on any given day in the Canterbury region, and that includes the Selwyn district. We provide 24-hour care for people who've got quite significant traumatic brain injuries and need that full wraparound support, from 24-hour nursing care to care and support. We also provide education in the communities. We work with numerous organisations within the community, the police, work and income, any housing agencies, etc., that may come across people who have traumatic brain injury and need to understand how to work with those who are suffering from this or have sustained this. We also provide advocacy for people with disabilities, for example, including housing and employment. We actually have our own social enterprise business called Can Do Catering, where we employ 11 people at the moment who have a significant disability, and they provide catering services, commercial catering services in the community, to places like Canterbury University, the Christchurch Arts Centre. So we're really proud of that social enterprise. We believe that we're aligned with the Selwyn District Council community outcomes in terms of that connected community, being active and educating in the community. We have a number of teams who undertake presentations in a whole range of different areas, from schools and colleges as well, in terms of raising that awareness of brain injury and the impact that it has. And we like to promote strong neighbourhoods. We're part of the community. The people we support are part of the community. So that's really forefront in our minds. Rather than listen to me babble on, what I thought I'd like to do is just let you hear from the people that we support. Don't know if we've got sound.
If we didn't exist, there would be a significant number of people who would not be able to access the services that they require. So if you were to have a major motor vehicle accident and have multiple trauma, Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust provides you with all of those services to support you to recover and everything in between.
So it was in January 2020. I was riding a mountain bike up here on the Port Hills in Christchurch with a friend of mine. I had a crash of sorts, went over the handlebars. I had bruising and bleeding on my brain, mainly to the frontal lobe and the rear of my brain, as it rocked around when it impacted my skull. The outcomes of that were I had a lot of photosensitivity. My cognitive skills were really poor, so that was down to walking, talking. I had trouble making decisions, understanding complex pieces of information. I've had a lot of interactions with the Laura Ferguson teams. They took the time to understand who I was pre-accident. So I guess in a way I felt quite lucky that I had all of those people wrapped around me.
Our team of 240 specialised staff work together to provide community-based rehabilitation and support clients in our 24-hour residential care homes with specialised therapists, support and education and activity programmes.
I was riding my horse at home and she slipped over. I was knocked out straight away. I was in a coma for 30 days. The Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust helped me massively. And I just can't express my gratitude to everyone that helped me out, because my life would not be the same as it is right now.
It's just so invaluable that we have services like these guys and what they do. They don't just help people get their lives back to normal, but they help people's families. And I don't think you could put a price on that at all.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much for coming in today. Councillors, you've got some things you'd like to know a little bit more about. I just had one, and it was around the support that you provide to people. Is it only following an event, or is it for anyone that is suffering from the same sorts of disabilities that events cause from birth that you support too?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. We support, the majority of people that we support have had a traumatic event, but we have a broad range of services. We support people who've had a stroke, for example, or have some other neurological conditions or long-term disability as well.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Yeah, just wondering, so you probably mentioned in here, but just wondering sort of the scope of area regionally that you're able to realistically tackle for that?
In terms of the regions?
Yeah.
Yes, yep. So we have services that operate across the whole of the South Island, but the majority of services that we deliver are Canterbury based across to the West Coast and probably down as far as Palmerston. That would be the region where the bulk of our services are delivered.
Thank you. Megan.
Kia ora. So I wanted to know, how are you funded to provide your services, and if funded by central government, is that a challenge at the moment? Has that been impacted by central government reform?
Yes, we are funded through a number of government contracts, both Whaikaha and ECC and Te Whatu Ora. In terms of being impacted with the recent cabinet paper and the freeze on funding, there is a minor impact to us at the moment. However, we provide quite a unique range of services, so our risk is spread across the different contracts that we operate from, and that's quite a strategic move on our part to ensure that, when government does one thing in one corner, we can still continue to operate sustainably.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate you coming in today and telling us about the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ta. And next we have Frankie. Frankie, would you like to come and take a seat at the front of the room? Thank you for coming in today to present to us. That microphone that's in front of you, just press the right-hand button. That's it, and the floor is yours.
Have you ever seen an elephant
do you want your children or grandchildren to be able to see an elephant as they grow up? We are at the edge of the future. Man-made climate change is pushing all species to the brink. Soon, we won't be able to take back what we have done. The edge of the future is an opportunity to change and our last chance to act. Overuse of private cars is a major contributor to climate change. Lack of public transport is a big problem around Ōtautahi. There are limited buses and very few other public transport options. For instance, there are no public buses out where I live, so we have to take our car everywhere. Lots of families, like ours, are living in areas with limited public transport, increasing the number of private cars on the roads. 4.6 metric tonnes of carbon emissions are released by a family car per year. In Aotearoa, that's the same weight as 2 million elephants. Those elephants that your children or grandchildren may never get to see if we don't act now. We try to do our bit by using an electric car, but that is still not enough. We all know that petrol and diesel cars release carbon emissions. In fact, these types of vehicles emit 3 times the amount of emissions compared to electric vehicles. But did you know that greenhouse gases are also produced during the manufacturing of electric vehicles? If getting an electric car isn't the solution, what is? Well, public transport is, and some of the options I will talk about today are light rail and improved bus networks. Light rail. Why? In Ōtautahi, you often see one person per car heading to work. In places such as Melbourne, one tram can fit up to 150 people. That means up to 150 less cars on the road creating pollution. The edge of Ōtautahi is growing. We need to introduce light rail to get people out of their cars and into trams. That will help reduce greenhouse gases and carbon emissions. Trams also reduce travel time, lessen cost, and decrease stress. Why wouldn't you travel on a tram with all these benefits? Improve bus networks. All throughout Selwyn, there are places where no buses go, so lots of people have to use their cars. We need to make it easy and dependable for people to ditch their cars. If we increase bus frequency and extend the bus networks, more people are likely to use buses, reducing greenhouse gases and carbon emissions. I want to see change. I want to make the government aware that it is our last chance to act and we've got an opportunity to change. I look forward to a future where we can all appreciate the mighty elephant. The speech I have just shared with you is the one I did for Speaking for the Planet competition earlier this year. When I finished my speech, Colleen from Sustainable Ōtautahi Christchurch suggested I share it with you, so here I am. I won't talk any more about the sustainable benefits of public transport because I have covered that enough in my speech. Instead, I would like to talk about a few other benefits from the perspective of an 11-year-old. I currently live in Taitapu, and like I said, there is no public bus network out where I live. The population of Taitapu has grown a lot in the time that we have lived here, with many young families moving to the area. This means that the number of young people will grow in the future and rely on parents to transport them to all of their after-school activities. As an 11-year-old looking forward to when I am at high school, I, along with many of my friends, would like to have the option of being able to socialise and get to some of our sports practices independently. I currently play cricket, with my practice happening at Siringston Domain. At the moment, we have to take our car. I would like to know that in the future, I will be able to jump on a bus easily without relying on our parents to transport us everywhere. Developing independence safely is a really important part of growing up, and having a well-developed bus network that connects townships throughout Selwyn as well as with Christchurch City will be an important part of that.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's brilliant. How did you go on the speech competition with it?
I got second.
Nice work. Well done. Councillors, are there some questions and things you might have? Nicole.
Thanks for coming to speak to us, and you're really speaking sense. And these are messages that we try and try and put out as well. With us as the district council, we can influence the bus services, but those are done by Environment Canterbury. So, but it's definitely, those are things, having buses that go around the district are things that are being looked at. But you definitely, the message that you give is really good. And it's a pity the government's not hearing that at the moment. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Frankie. I really enjoyed your speech. And I was thinking to myself that you're quite a bit younger than everyone else at this table. Quite a bit. And you're going to be on this world a lot longer than us. So it's really good that you've got the confidence to have your voice heard here. And I know you're a bit nervous when you first came in, but congratulations for getting over that. Keep that confidence going, because your voice needs to be heard, and it will be heard for a long time. When our voices stop, your voice will still be there. So keep saying that stuff. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Elizabeth.
Thanks. So, Frankie, I think you read that absolutely beautifully. You did it so well. Just really curious, some of your friends, you talked about you doing cricket. Can you give me some other examples of your friends driving into town for after school activities?
My friend Pippa does football, and she would probably need to get to her football practice in Hallswell. Yeah.
Thank you. And Sophie.
Yeah, thank you very much for speaking to us. You're brilliant. So one question I had was, if you've had a bus service, so obviously you've got a choice from Taitapu. If they were going to run a bus, it can go into Christchurch or it can go to Lincoln. Do you think it got any idea of how many people that you know would be wanting to catch those sorts of buses? No, I'm not asking you for an accurate thing. I'm like, what am I trying to say? Are there lots of people saying to you, actually, we'd much rather catch a bus. We don't want to drive.
I haven't really thought about that.
That's okay. Ignore me then. And the other thing is, you said before that you're 11.
Yeah.
Did you know we have a youth council? And the lady who runs it is just over there. And you can actually apply to join that from when you're 12. And I think your sort of voice would be fantastic to have on that someday. Maybe not as soon as when you're 12, that's entirely up to you. But at some point, because you can go up to when you're 24. So, you've got plenty of time. But yours are the sorts of voices that we need to hear. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And Frankie, thanks for coming in today. If you haven't already, I spoke with you before the meeting. I don't think you've been to Environment Canterbury to share with them. So I'd encourage you to do that. And if you don't find a chance to do that soon, you're welcome to come with me next year when we present our annual plan, because the messages that you're giving are the same things that for the last 8 years I've been asking, and before me I'm sure the council was asking for as well, for Environment Canterbury to take some action on, and it's going to require a partnership between the government, as Nicole said, been involved in that as well. So if you want to come with someone, that's not till next year though, so I'd encourage you to go there before that if you do get the opportunity. Thank you for coming in today though.
Thank you.
Mum, did you get a photo of that?
I didn't get a photo.
Do you want one?
Yeah, I should get one.
Yeah. It's a little moment in time. I'll come down and sit with you and then, yeah. That now brings us to confirmation of minutes from our last meeting on 14th of August. So we have a mover and seconder for those minutes.
I have an amendment, Mr.
Yeah.
Oh, what is it, Phil?
On page item 6, on page 20 of the agenda, it said that the council endorses there was a vote for the Waikirikiri Selwyn Future Economic Development Strategy, and I've been recorded as voting against that motion. I did not vote against that motion. I've been back through the live feed on the day to try and unpick it, and I was unable to unpick it. So I'd just like my name removed from that section of the minutes, please.
Cool, we can clear that up. Thank you, Phil. Sophie?
Also got an amendment, page 18, at the bottom there where we had the vote on the submissions to NZTA regarding speed limits. I asked for my vote against to be recorded, and I'm not sure about the other people who voted against, whether they did, but I also went through the live stream and I'm like, yep, I definitely said that.
Yeah, it can be recorded, Sophie. Thanks. You. Any other changes or amendments to the minutes? No, mover and seconder for them. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Malcolm. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. We have the notes from the public speaker also there on those minutes from the last council meeting. We move on to my report, and the original circulation of the Mayor's report had a duplication of Malcolm's previous report, so sorry about that when it was sent out. There's a number of things that are written in the updated report from me. Firstly, I want to say though, thank you to Malcolm for the job he did looking after chairing of meetings and the events in my absence. And thank you to everyone else who has been a part of that work over that time. In the last month, the headlines have kind of been focused on government announcements from the time we were at local government conference. And Nicole, thank you for being there with Malcolm and myself at that event, with the Prime Minister and other ministers announcing a lot of change for the local government sector. A cabinet paper was released last week, which highlights what a lot of those changes are going to look like, and it will require a lot more conversation and unpicking what that will actually mean for ourselves individually. It's not mentioned in the report because of the timing of when this was submitted, but I think it's also worth highlighting that last week we received some very disappointing news from NZTA Waka Kotahi on their co-funding for projects that we had previously thought were agreed to co-fund together, and we had spent the last 6 months talking with our community through our long-term plan about doing those projects. The news that we nearly $30 million of funding is now not going to be provided by NZTA means that we're going to have to relook at what those projects are. It's going to be very disappointing for many of the projects because we just can't afford to do them without some serious changes in either rating levels or new income streams. And those projects have been particularly well supported in our community if we consider the lights outside of West Rolleston School and the changes to the intersection there. We know that Waka Kotahi had already talked to us about all of the upgrades that we needed to have in our long-term plan as they upgrade State Highway 1 through Rolleston. So we had that agreement. The fifth roundabout and the Prebleton connections into the Southern Motorway is also one of those that isn't funded, and again we're 4/5 of the way through an agreed project with an MOU, and for that not to be delivered will cause some serious safety concerns for the traffic that travels those roads, as we've tried to support Waka Kotahi with having more people involved in the motorway itself. So again, we're going to have a full rundown and presentation and briefing from staff coming up. I think it's next week, Sharon. So we will have a deeper discussion on that then, but I just think it's important that we highlight some of the disappointing news that we have recently received on that. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you've got of my report, if you have them. Sophie?
Yeah, mine was more of a request for an amendment. On the second page of your report, it mentions you had a meeting with Minister Foster. As far as I'm aware, Andy Foster is not a minister.
He's an MP.
Obviously it's fine that Malcolm here came in for a meeting. That's just accuracy.
Cool, we'll update that. We'll check and make sure. Thanks, Sophie. Cool. I'll move that you receive my report and Malcolm's for the things that were on there earlier. Seconded by Malky. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. The next item is the Chief Executive's report.
Thank you, Sam. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of items. The first one being the response from Audit New Zealand regarding the press article on the long-term plan. So this was comments made, I think, in the press following the Julian Tan, our auditor, providing some commentary around the long-term plan. Unfortunately, I think comments were attributed to Mr. Tan without actually Mr. Tan ever actually having verbalised those comments. And I was delighted that Audit New Zealand wrote apologising, and they tried to remedy the misstatements that were made by the journalist. Unfortunately, the editor and the press chose not to take that request on board, which is really unfortunate. But I think it's really great that Audit New Zealand wrote to us, and we were able to share that with our staff involved, because I think, unfortunately, the factually incorrect reporting and attributing that statement to Julian potentially impacted the perception about the relationship we have with Audit New Zealand, and we have an excellent relationship with Audit New Zealand, and I think it's really important to be able to address that. So that's my first point. Second is local water done well. So I want to thank Tim Mason and our partnership with Ngāi Tahu and with support from PwC as well as DIA around working through the opportunities for Selwyn District Council around what is the model that we need to have going forward. A huge amount of work's gone underway. We are in discussions with other councils who are interested in a partnership. We will be having a follow-up workshop in a couple of weeks' time to have a discussion about what perhaps is the best option for this council to be able to explore and progress. And as you can see, there's lots of information that's coming out. It is a bit of a moving feast, and as we get new announcements being made, we factor that into our thinking, and we'll try and pull as much as that through into the next workshop. We do have a paper in Public Excluded around the core director role, so we will talk about that later. Super local conference, I would like to focus on our youth council and the fact that they submitted an award for the Super Mayor game as part of the Super Local Award. So congratulations to Mackenzie and Bridie and the team for putting that forward. It was really great that they got to be finalists, and they were in with a really high caliber group. So just really wanted to acknowledge that. And then we just summarised the remits that councillors guided the delegated councillors to, and we just wanted to provide the outcome there to you for your information. And finally, item number 8, it's just the response back to the public forum to Mark Alexander. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Any comments or questions on Sharon's report? Phil?
I'm just going to say I'm happy to move it in its entirety.
Okay.
As it is.
Thanks, Phil. Can I give it a second to then comment?
Yes.
Thanks.
Did the Youth Council get a certificate or anything for the, because it was they were finalists, weren't they, for that group?
There were no other awards given out unless the
No,
judges.
but that's what I'm just asking, whether there was a certificate or some sort of acknowledgement like that.
No, I think it was just the award for the whoever won.
Yeah, that was the first and the second got something, you could see that, but that's why I just wondered about the third.
And it was Gisborne District Council, I think, for their collaboration in response to their natural events. Yeah. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. No further questions for Sharon. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. The next item is tab 9, page 202, the proposed new financial delegation limits. Sharon. Malcolm will move. Phil, you second it. Great. Sharon, do you just want to talk through?
Yeah, I might actually have Steve and Jodie if they want to come up to the table. So, councillors, this has come on the back of numerous discussions. I think over the last 6 months we have held some workshops with you about resetting the delegations. We've broken the project down into two parts. We're looking at the financial delegations first, and non-financial delegations will follow at a later stage. The first part to the financial delegations is council have one employee, which is the CEO. So today what we're bringing to you is a paper asking council to provide a set of delegations to myself, which is there's been a lot of thought has gone into this. We have also taken some comparisons from around the rest of the country and other councils, and the delegations that we're putting forward reflects also the fact that we are one of the fastest growing councils in New Zealand, and to enable and to support me delivering the long-term plan and all of the good things that we have happening. It is about providing your chief executive with the ability to be able to sign up to a particular dollar value that is in keeping with the financial level of work that we are now undertaking in terms of capital programme, so that we can help, for example, improve delivery on our capital programme project.
Thank you. Steve, you got anything more to add? It was good summary there. This is the right move for us as a district. We approve many decisions through the long-term plan. We get the budgets in place, and when we make the decisions about saying yes at the long-term plan, then we expect staff to be able to deliver those projects. So this change to the delegation means that we can now ensure that those projects can be continued without undue delay and constant reporting back to us to seek the same approval again, sometimes 2 or 3 times, depending on the contracts that come through. So thank you, Malcolm and Phil, for moving. Is there anyone else who would like to say anything? Or question? Yeah, Megan.
I just have 2 questions. The first question is it's about how that then lines up with the capital works procurement process. Like, is the delegation's authority, like how do those two kind of marry together? That's the first question. And my second question was more just about understanding how it works and how it actually works operationally. Like, for example, the proposed delegation says, for example, consultants and advisors, chief executive has authority for 500,000. So is that over a particular time period, or is it just as one-offs?
Thank you. So in terms of the first question, I guess what we've done through these delegations is to be really clear and intentional around both the operating expenditure and the capital expenditure. And part of the delay in us implementing these from today's decision is to then make sure that these flow back through the procurement documents that are also being reviewed at the moment. So these are the financial limits that will then inform a range of other procurement and other practices across the council. So that hopefully answers the first relationship. Yeah. In terms of the second question, I guess if you look at the Appendix 2, which talks to the current state, and you look at the way in which we've broken down the delegations for the chief executive in the proposed state, we've been a lot clearer about the financial limits. And so for your specific question about the consultancy, it means that the chief executive can sign up a consultancy to that maximum value. It doesn't necessarily take account of time, but it's the financial value itself. Obviously, time and duration probably do constitute total financial expenditure. And so there is a relationship implied, but not direct.
So I think I understand that. So that's a one-off contract up to the value of 500,000, but it's all in the context of the long-term plan and annual plan.
Correct.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. Deborah.
Thanks for asking that question, Megan. I've got a follow-up question on what Megan's just asked. What happens if the project or the value of the consultants is less than the 500,000?
how's that going to be managed with regards to reporting back to council? Will that be reported back to the chief executive, and then that will be reported back to our financial performance that this consultancy contract is for, say, 250,000 and not 500?
By setting a maximum limit, I guess you're not necessarily triggering a decision to come back to council, which is one of the first tests of efficiency and effectiveness. But in terms of the financial reporting around project delivery, this will be wrapped up into the financial performance reporting on the key projects. And when you're looking at these expenditure items, it would be fair to say a lot of this will be covered under that other type of reporting. I guess the decision and the difference is by setting these limits, you're setting the maximum threshold for what doesn't require a decision, but it doesn't stop us reporting progress. So hopefully I know what the question is. Hopefully I've answered it. It'll come through a different reporting mechanism.
Thanks for explaining that. It's just that I don't like to see the maximum being used all the time. If it's not necessary to use the maximum, we should be using, being prudent with our funds and actually using what's reasonable and not necessarily up to the maximum because it's there.
I think for us, the limit is a limit, and most contracts won't get anywhere near the limit. It's just that the limit sets the threshold for a different way of making those decisions beyond the delegations given to the chief executive. Any further comments or questions people have? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. We now move to the endorsement of the Piki-a-Makura Youth Strategy and Te Paipai Ageing Well Strategy.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Pete Quirk, Head of Community and Economic Development. This is Hannah and Jenny, and I really want to acknowledge the strategy, them as the strategy authors, Jenny as the strategy author for Te Paipai and Hannah for Piki-a-Makura. Today we're here seeking endorsement of the content only of Te Paipai Ageing Well and Piki-a-Makura Youth Strategy.
Yeah, it should just be spacebar. There we go.
Okay. Piki-a-Makura and Te Paipai are among the suite of strategies and plans that sit within the overarching umbrella of Future Selwyn and the people and community priority. The strategies align with Waikirikiri Ki Tua, Future Selwyn, and will contribute to efforts to deliver on the outcome, a great place to call home, strategic priorities and aspirations of the district, ensuring a cohesive approach to navigating the future. You will recall our presentation of the draft strategies to Council in early August, where we requested feedback. We've taken in your feedback, and the marketing and communications teams are currently working on Piki-a-Makura to make the text easier to read, with additional introduction of additional headings and graphics throughout the document. In addition to the design changes being made to Piki-a-Makura, the marketing and communications teams are working closely with Te Paumatua to weave the cultural narrative of both the strategies into their designs, which aligns with Waikirikiri Ki Tua, Future Selwyn. You will have the opportunity to see the updated design of both strategies by the end of the year, and we'll be submitting these for your information to a future council briefing once the designs are complete. Today, for Te Paipai Ageing Well Strategy and Piki-a-Makura Youth Strategy, we are seeking endorsement of the content, noting that the design of the strategies will change to incorporate the cultural narratives. Final designs for both strategies are being worked on and will be presented to Council for information by the end of the year. And the final designs include the cultural design elements that reflect the names and align the strategies with Waikirikiri Kitua Future Selwyn, plus updated photographs. For Piki Amakura, in response to your feedback, work is also underway to improve the readability by replacing some text with graphics and using consistent headings of what we heard, why it's important, and how we're listening to guide the reader. As an overview, some changes which are being made to Piki Amakura are updating the photography, reducing some of the introductory text to graphics, adding back in the footnotes, adding in headings, and highlighting key points to help readability. If endorsed, action planning will take place in collaboration with stakeholders and teams across Council for each strategy. The overall success of each strategy will be measured and monitored using 3 measures from Waikirikiri Kitua Future Selwyn and several population level measures as relevant to each strategy. In addition, specific measures will be developed for each strategy as part of the action planning process, aligned with each strategy's priority areas. As living documents, action planning will be ongoing and updated as actions are completed and to reflect changes in context and take advantage of new opportunities. Progress on the action plans and the deliverables and the strategies will be reported annually to Council. Council will note that progress on the strategy's implementation is a KPI in Long-Term Plan 2024-2034. So in summary, we've taken in your feedback regarding the readability of Piki Amakura, and work is underway on the final design, including changing some text into graphics. The final designs of Piki Amakura and Te Pai Pai will include the cultural narrative of each strategy that aligns with Waikirikiri Kitua Future Selwyn. You will have the opportunity to see the updated design of both strategies before the end of the year. Today we are recommending endorsement of the content of Te Pai Pai and Piki Amakura.
Great, thank you. So there's 3 recommendations in front of us today, Council, the endorsement of both strategies and noting that final design work change. Any comments or questions councillors have? Sophie?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been well, actually, it's been fairly speedy for strategy development around here, so good job, everybody. I'm happy to move this. I've just got one question, which is more of a clarity one that I wish I'd picked up earlier. In the report, it's got high-level measures for both of the strategies, and I realised once they were next to each other, one of them refers to percentages, and the other one refers to increase or decrease. And I was just thinking, in terms, like, I get entirely what the purpose of those measures is, but it just, you know, the way my brain works, I look at it going, increase in school attendance. Well, we've got an increasing number of kids. So actually, if the increasing number of kids go to school, that's actually just natural increase, not an increase in attendance. So I don't know if that's worth clarifying somewhere. But other than that, love it. Thank you.
Definitely note that. Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie. Let me have a second.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I was just going to make a couple of comments. So on which our page 230, it talks about the cost of households spending more than 40% on their disposable income on rent. That's 25% of households spend more than 40%. Yeah, so obviously we've got some really key target issues, and obviously some of the feedback that I see in here from what I'm getting on the ground, like people talking about public transport, a lot of the ageing population have said we'd like to be able to get to the hospital. They've actually got the option of that out and leased in obviously my ward, but they weren't aware of it. So I'm just love to see what we do with this from how we put this and implement it on the ground, because I know one of the things that's been asked for in my region is can we have a paper copy that they can pick up from the libraries that's got all those things, because we don't have the yellow pages like we used to, right? To have that kind of yellow pages. What have we got available is surprising the amount of people who don't realise what's actually in their back doorstep. what services available, and I think the same for the youth as well, like youth groups and clubs and sports people don't always know. So yeah, I love a lot of the content in here. There's a lot of things which are quite alarming, like that stats there about the disposable income, and I'd love to see how we're going to progress with that to try and address some of these things in a real world term. Thank you.
We do have a community directory, which is an online facility for people, which, you know, fully recognising that some of the population, it's not how they want to receive information. So there is a piece in the action planning looking at how we communicate and how we include people and make sure that people are aware of all the options available to them within the community. And there are opportunities with using, working with our ACLL library colleagues around, you know, if people are interested in a particular service, that they can get help at their local library to look at the community directory and print off things and get information, as well as through Heartlands. So there are some options that we're certainly looking at promoting and being able to communicate more widely.
Now, kia ora. So I am going to repeat what I've said before, but the reason I'm going to do it is we're in a formal setting and I would like it actually on the record to acknowledge the work that you have done as a team to include Māori and mana whenua voice and needs. And you've really articulated the unique needs of our communities. And so I really wanted to take a moment and say once again how well you've done to engage, first of all, because engagement with Māori and mana whenua is often quite challenging, but engagement, but then also reflection of their voice and their needs. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan. Sharon.
I just wanted to add in not only thank you to Claire, Hannah, Jenny, but also to Nicola and Stephanie as well. Had a huge part to play in this, and I know you're not sitting around the table, and it's important to acknowledge you both.
Great, and I'll just reiterate what Sophie said at the beginning. It's like quality work, but done at pace. It feels like this was one that sort of got picked up and has landed in this here, so well done to the team. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. The next item is the community funding report. It's on page 342 of today's agenda. We're approving the policy. There's two there to be for implementation, terms of reference, and we're appointing 4 councillors to that group. We're repealing award discretionary fund policy, agreeing that residents groups remain. 7 is that we agree that the Meet Your Street Fund retain its name and that dinners of sale and events be supported through the community fund. We agree that the Ellesmere Reserves Board fund be made available according to the purposes and outcome of the fund stated to support the Leeston Park Renewal Programme and support the Ellesmere community by funding up to $50,000 for grant to enable community sport and recreation initiatives. And 9 is that we agree to complete a formal evaluation of the community funding program by September 26. Hand over to the team. Thank you.
Right, thank you, and tēnā koutou katoa everyone. Ko Nicola Sutton aho, and sitting with me is Claire Quirk, Head of Community Development, Community and Economic Development, and Stephanie, who has been working with me as part of the community funding team on the preparation of this report. I've only got a really brief introduction for today. The report is a culmination of engagement that we've had with you around the changes to the community funding program that you approved in November last year and through the LTP deliberations. We held a workshop with you on the 7th of August and also presented a paper to you at the council briefing last week for discussion. So this report mirrors the paper that was presented last week with several minor changes that reflected your discussions. The recommendations now include recommendation 1 that provides council with the opportunity to determine whether or not to allow scope in the policy for independent members should the assessment panel want to nominate those. And depending on that decision, recommendations 2 and 3 may need to take that into account or not. And then the remaining recommendations that have been put forward were described in the briefing paper last week, and so I won't add anything further to it at this point, so I'll hand back to you.
Great, thank you. There's 4 spaces that we need to fill with 4 councillors' names, and so if people want to put their hand up for that, I've had a few people say to me that they'd like to be those people, and Elizabeth, Bob, Deborah, and Sophie is putting up her hand. So if those four want to be those people, no. Speak, Elizabeth.
No, I thought Shane put his hand up for my ward.
Oh, did he? He's not here to.
No, there's an email that came through, and I'm pretty sure he said that he was happy to be on this.
Okay, great. So Bob, Deborah, Shane, and Phil is the. Oh, sorry. I'm reading off a list I wrote for another matter on the agenda. We write the names on there live so we can see them. So Councillor from the Ellesmere Ward, Shane. And from the Melbourne Ward, Bob.
King Bob.
And from the Rolleston Ward, Sophie.
Similarity with glasses, you know.
Yeah,
They're all
it's
interchangeable.
really hard to distinguish.
Hey, got it out.
And from the Springs Ward, Deborah.
I want to speak to that one, please.
Yes. Okay, number of speakers. Phil, you're first.
Thank you for that, and we've got there. A couple of things. I just wanted to, I think, number one, that you're on the thing there needs to be fleshed out a little bit. And I think probably it doesn't really say the same thing here as it says in page 23 of the report. Page 23 of the report says that the panel can have them if they want. But the recommendation here says almost that it's just possible to have them. So I think that would need to be made really clear. And I think we can probably wordsmith that here and now.
Yep.
So that, and the inclusion in clause, blah, 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 community funding policy, and to enable the appointment of 1 to 2 independent members of the assessment panel if the assessment panel deems it necessary for the issues at hand. And even in that you on page 23, it says they don't have to be the same people. Or maybe even that needs to be put in there as well.
Phil, do you think that's just what the word enables means, though, that we're not actually directing them to or not to?
Well, I'm not sure, because when I first actually read this, then I went to 23. I actually read them as different polls, and enabling 1 or 2 independent people to be on the assessment panel. It says we can have 1 or 2 people on the assessment panel. What 23 says is it can be this 1 or 2 people, or this 1 or 2 people, or this 1 or 2 people, or this 1 or 2 people. And I think that probably needs to be just fleshed in. I mean, the spirit of it is in the report, but I don't think the spirit of the report is represented in their recommendation. That's all.
Can I just, I'll just comment there. There was, so the policy in the terms of assessment, the terms of reference for the assessment panel that's in the report, as we envisage it working. There was a question in the briefing last week just around whether we even want to have 1 to 2 independent members. And so this is the opportunity to go, yes, we do, or no, we don't. If you say no, we don't, then we need to take it out of the assessment, terms of reference for the assessment panel and the policy. And there are just 3 clauses where that would be taken out. And if you go, actually, we do want to have the scope to have independent members, then it just stays in the policy as it is. But there might be a better way of doing it.
Look, I see. If I could draw by example the Heritage Fund, we have experts in the heritage space that come into the meeting and deliver on the heritage space. But they may not necessarily be the right people to have for all of the things. But at the moment, it says that it can enable the appointment of 1 or 2. I just think it can be tightened up. I think it says it sounds like the 1 or 2 people for the Heritage Fund will then be there for everything.
Okay, I get that.
Because effectively, we can appoint 20.
But what we're actually endorsing, so we're approving the enablement here, but what we're actually endorsing is clause 7.44 in the report, which needs to be read for how this decision is interpreted, because the panel themselves will do the appointing according to the policy itself, not according to the decision.
Okay, yeah,
written today.
I'm there. Okay. The next thing I was going to suggest was that on number 9 there. I wonder whether the date is a good date for evaluation. It says the formal evaluation for the community fund program will be done in September 2026. withdraw. I thought it said 2025 when it first came out, which is 2025, that's with the election happening at that same time. But it's not. It's in fact, it's 1 year after the election, so it's an ideal date. I have nothing more to say.
And this will be to feed into the long-term plan thinking next time round.
Thank you for,
Thanks, Phil. Elizabeth.
On our page 385, so halfway down the page, number 1, it says a proportion of overhead costs, salaries, rent, etc., relating directly to the project may be included in the total project costs. I just wanted to understand this because obviously I've been on the funding committee and we've had these discussions about income salaries not able to usually be a part of the funding application. So I just wanted to ask, what's the relevance of this statement to the usual way that we structure not giving money for
I'm
salaries?
sorry, Elizabeth, I don't have access to diligence, so I don't know where you are. Are you able to give me the page number of the document?
Sure, page of the
44.
document.
44?
Okay, something up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Is it
Okay,
Schedule 8, I think, Elizabeth?
so that's actually the existing policy. It's not the new policy. It's there as an appendix just showing what was. So the new policy doesn't include that wording.
Right, so just wanted to clarify with you that we have something somewhere stipulating still that salaries are not a part of that.
Yeah.
And the other one was, again, there's so much reading, I'm sorry if I missed it, but I didn't see anything in a policy saying about how often the group can apply / reapply. Do we have that in the policy now?
So no, we don't have that in the policy. That would be part of the assessment criteria that the assessment panel could take into consideration. And in relation to the salaries, there is a section under what can't be applied for, and ongoing salaries and wages can't be applied for, but there can be the one-off project ones. So for instance, if there's a specific project, it may be that there's a contribution to the wage cost for that one very specific project.
And it might be that the assessment panel themselves would request in the reporting to them to have last time this group applied for funding was, and then the funding panel would be able to make that decision about whether that's appropriate or otherwise.
Yeah. So on that, to clarify, that also is there also some change to those who are doing fundraisers? Is there any change to what we've currently had?
So currently you can't use funding for fundraisers, but there is a clause in this that allows up to $300 for direct fundraising costs. It can't be used for indirect costs. And basically it's to allow the small community groups that want to run a sausage sizzle or something like that, and it's a contribution to that fundraising, but it's not allowing for the larger fundraising type projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Well, my name's been put forward. I realise that we're 2/3 into a triennium, and I'm reading the area of panel and member conduct with regards to the attendance of meetings. There is one section in here that I have a complete conflict of interest, and I will not be attending or being involved in any of those that particular assessment panel. I'm highlighting that now, and I've highlighted that through to the Mayor.
Yep.
The other is that it's anticipated that these that this will take place in the first 2 weeks of the month with regards to the assessment panel. Do you have any idea what time and what days? Because I don't know about other councillors, but I have commitments outside council that are scheduled for and have been scheduled into my diary for the past triennium. And, you know, I mean, it's going to be difficult for me unless I understand what time and availability it is to shuffle those around. Because council was only ever part-time. You know, and we put in our diaries our scheduled time frames for also life outside or our commitments outside council. And I just want to highlight that reading it in here, whether it actually covers those areas with my name going forward. So I'd like some clarification around that, because I may be caught up as you know, not being at every funding meeting.
So we're anticipating until
any other members are appointed, it will be, the assessment panel will consist of the 4 councillors, and we thought that it would be sensible, if possible, to hold it just straight after the council meeting. So it needs to be held either in the 2nd week or the 3rd week of the month in order to meet the timeframes that are required as part of the policy. But the idea was that the assessment panel would agree what the best time was to meet going forward. So that would be open for the assessment panel to determine how that works best.
Okay.
And we accept that from time to time, individual elected members might not be available for particular meetings, and those that are here will be able to continue to make decisions on their behalf anyway.
Right, I just want to highlight it in the meeting because we're 2/3 through a triennium and changing our roles and responsibilities, and just highlighting that, you know, we do have those commitments.
Yes.
Some of us outside this organisation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sophie.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you very much. This has been a bit of a beast of a thing to try to wrangle into coherence, so nice one. Be interesting to see how it goes through, but I think it'll probably be a bit easier to manage those different things and work out who's getting what and where and why and everything from here on in, so that's awesome. I do have one question. And it's with regard to the predator-free fund, because it's a new one. We haven't really applied, done this before. And it's more around just the sheer fact that predators and pests actually don't care about territorial boundaries. So obviously the idea would be that somebody's applying for a project that is within Selwyn, but inevitably there could be a bit of crossover. And I know that there's been talk around sort of trying to have some coordination between districts, and potentially there might be an application coming that would involve one of those. And I can see how it might fit into these different clauses. Like there's the whole part about, you know, a group that isn't necessarily specifically for Selwyn can apply so long as the project describes how it will be beneficial to Selwyn, and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to check, you know, that's still okay, really. I mean, we're quite good at reading the applications and going, okay, you haven't mentioned this. Is this because you're trying to pull one over, or is it because genuinely there's difficulties in explaining how this is going to work? So
yeah, I think it's absolutely critical that the activity takes place in Selwyn and benefits the Selwyn district. And my expectation is that the project, given the size of the fund, there isn't a lot of scope within it, but the project needs to be within the Selwyn district. What we could do is in the application form actually be really direct in asking them to specify the area covered, if that would bring benefit. So there's no reason why we can't. If we're having trouble with particular pieces of information not being as clear as what it needs to, then we can make the application form give us that information.
Okay, Malcolm.
Yes, I want a point of clarification, actually. Thank you, Nicola. Number 8, we're talking about the Ellesmere Reserve Board Fund. That fund's been in operation since amalgamation of the council. Many of the other wards had funds which we have, over time, been encouraged to use up. I am concerned as to I would very much like to see this fund used for Whātaro, and that Whātaro is servicing the Ellesmere area which that fund comes from. And I see there we're talking about the fund for 24-25 be made available for community funding for the Leeston Park, which is exactly what I want to see. Is that the entirety of the fund, or is that just a piece of the fund?
So there's about 218,000 in balance in the fund at the moment, right. And then it has income of around the $81,000 mark each year. And so given that the fund hasn't been distributed particularly since we took it over in 2022, there's some expectation from community groups who've accessed that fund in the past that there will be an opportunity to apply for funding. So the proposal that's here is really just around 24-25, indicating that funds would be used for whātaro that would be in addition to what's already been approved in the LTP, but also that some portion of that's made available to community. Now, council might want to indicate whether future funds going forward from that may be directed to the whātaro project until that's complete. That might be something it wants to do. But this was really putting forward an opportunity for council to consider how it wanted to allocate some of its funding from this year. So technically, council's got at its disposal the 218,000 balance plus whatever incomes coming in this year.
And that income is coming from?
About 76 of it comes from lease, and about 5,000, I understand, is from interest.
Okay, good as gold. No, I'm happy with that, and I know that in the LTP process we had people wanting funds for archery and various other things within the community. I was just very keen to make sure that that fund was being used, rather than seeing it coming at a general rate, as it is $19 million. Thank you.
So just for clarity on that answer, then you're saying there's 200,000-ish in the account currently. We're planning to give away 50 of that, which leaves 150 plus the 80 in the next 12 months that will accrue for a further decision of council and contribution to whātaro perhaps at that point.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Nicole?
No,
is it Deborah?
Was that on the same matter?
Yeah, no, I've got the same matter. So
Okay, well, you asked that.
because I'm not going to.
sorry, I'm looking. The funds will be used to support Leaston Park renewal program being carried out by council. I cannot see Whataroa mentioned at all in this application. So if you're going to intend to use the funds for that, then I suggest you actually put it in section 8 right now. So it's clarity in the policy that that's what those funds can be used for. And I will move an amendment to that so that it's actually bullet pointed in 8 that these funds can be used for Whataroa.
Yeah, but do you want that as an amendment to the first bullet point, which would just, so it says support the Leaston Park renewal program and whātaro being carried out by council, because we're not actually we're not distributing any funds today.
No,
we're just saying as a principle that's where we would like the money
but
to go.
it needs to be in there. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't mention it all.
Can I just, can we call it Waihora Whātaro? Because Whātaro is the building.
Yes.
Waihora Whātaro is the Leaston Park renewal part of the project.
Yes. Hang on. No, well, if that's the case, then we're going to need both, because I want the building plus the reserve area as well being covered.
Yeah.
So the reserve fund doesn't allow, it's not, I'd have to check, but I doubt it allows for the building of Whātaro, but it does allow for the, so it's always existed for the benefit of the reserves of Ellesmere and the sport and recreation on those reserves. That's why it would be the Leaston Park part of the project of Waihora Whātaro. So the renewal that's taking place on Leaston Park, it would be to that part of that Waihora Whātaro project.
So suppose the building, which is not only a library, but it's a community centre, actually holds indoor sporting facilities or has a sporting component into it, then why can't it be used for the sports facility inside that building?
I think I'd want to check. I think we'd want our legal team to give an opinion on what that fund can and can't be used for.
Okay, well, can we put that section on hold until we get that legal opinion, please? Because
I think
I'm not comfortable without understanding the legal implications, because it's a report that does not, unfortunately, have attached to it the actual Ellesmere Reserve Board document, which would have been very helpful.
I think having the discussion today is good because it sends a direction and staff can understand what the intent might be. But perhaps if that first bullet point then says we support in principle, and we can have Waihora Whātaro Leaston Park renewal program, and then we can come back, because in principle we're saying that's where we want it to go, but we need to understand more before we make a final decision. Deborah, does that cover your concern? And why that we include the Leeston Park renewal and Whatudo as a building, anything on the reserve as a part of that project is the intent behind adding those words in.
Okay, as long as it's clarified, so it doesn't come back. That's all I'm covering.
Can I just can I just clarify at this point? Does that then mean that the funding team can open up the contestable round part of it, or that waits for
the 50,000? So what we're saying today is the 50,000 is fine for the contestable piece. Everything else is on hold, but generally we're saying that we want that spent on Waihora, Whatudo, and any other building that's on the reserve.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Deborah Sue, do you want to move? That, we don't need to move an amendment because there was no mover and seconder to this. So if you move the report as with that wording, Deborah?
Okay, I'll move the report with that wording.
Okay, is there a seconder for the report? Thanks, Malcolm. Nicole?
Thanks for all this work. This has been a long time coming. I'm glad it's finally here. It's just unfortunate it wasn't ready to go at the 1st of July. Obviously, in the meantime, we've been sort of in a bit of a no man's land, which doesn't help if people were wanting to apply properly for these funds, particularly the ward discretionary ones. But I had asked a question because it's been raised that through this, then councillors and councillors' staff not able to apply for these funds, but I had asked about their dependents and such like, and you were going to, I understand they were going to find out from the Officer of the Auditor General where that actually sat, and I'm just wondering if you'd heard back.
No, so that advice is still being sought.
Yeah, because so just probably clarify to anyone who's listening that we normally manage conflicts of interest within council. We have ways of doing things, and that's why I raised the question, because this is slightly different to what we have normally done in the past with managing conflicts.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments on this? Just want to make sure that we've got the wording there clear, so that, does that wording capture what you've heard the intent is, Nicola?
I'm sorry, I can't see. Can you read that for me?
Denise, can you? So what we're saying is that we support in principle the Leeston Park renewal and Whatudo program being carried out by council.
Waihora Whatudo.
What year Waihora Whatudo?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Good. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carries. Thank you. And the last matter for the public agenda today is standing orders and an update to
Castle Hill.
I skipped one. Oh, Sophie, this is your one. That the council receives the report and resolves to adopt the Castle Hill Village Reserves Management Plan and delegates authority to the panel chairperson, Councillor McInnes, to approve any minor edits and changes to the plan prior to public distribution.
Do we want Derek to come up and talk about it? Because he's done an awful lot of work.
It's such a great piece of work. Derek would be.
Thank you and good afternoon. I think you mentioned earlier, Sam, around quality work that was fast, but maybe this one wasn't so fast. So hopefully the report's procedural at this point and can be taken as read. And the recommendation before you is the adoption of the Castle Hill Reserves Management Plan as endorsed by the appointed hearing panel. And I'll just take this opportunity to thank councillors McInnes, Mugford and Glidden for giving their time on the hearing panel and reviewing the submissions. And the final plan was also presented to the Melbourne Community Board at their May meeting, and they gave their recommendation that it now be adopted by council as well. So it's a review of a 2011 plan. It's been a thorough process. It's had to work through some complex issues with trees and wilding pines, which was raised to this council through the public forum in May. So hopefully council can have confidence that it's a The plan takes into considerations of the public and is fit for purpose, and it's time to get it implemented. So I'll hand it back for questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Derek. Certainly is time. It's been pretty complex, and it's kind of bespoke. It's not in the way that we deal with reserves in any other of our townships. So thank you for the perseverance of staff and for those councillors that have been involved in the hearing. Did anyone want to, questions or comments on it? Phil?
Just going to move it. It's a pretty comprehensive document. I'm happy to move it as it is.
Thanks, Phil.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Mel. Elizabeth?
Quick question. We heard quite a lot about this at LTP. I just wanted to ask, in the statement it says opposition to the inclusion of landmark trees within any new plantings generally due to their height/size of maturity. So what actually has been the conclusion that you've come to in terms of landmark trees, and what are you calling landmark trees?
Yeah, good question. So landmark trees were trees that were sort of classed as being able to grow to a mature height of over 30 metres, quite significant. It's a tricky one because the harsh environment there means there are actually landmark trees that are still only sort of 2-3 metres high 40 years later. So actually whether or not they'd reach that height is questionable. But so we've removed those species from the recommended planting list, so they shouldn't really be considered in future reserve plantings.
Great. So I just wanted to know what are those species? Thanks.
Sequoia, and I think there's a species of Cedrus atlantica that was included in the original planting list but has been removed since.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much to all the staff involved in this. We've got Andy here as well. Because it was a big piece of work. That's why it took so long. This is probably the only reserve we've got that is actually the village, as well as being a reserve of different types. So there was heaps to do around, there's the private trees as well as the public trees, but technically we could only really consider the public trees. There's the fire risk, there's the different species that have come in and the wilding aspect, and a lot of it is a very unique situation with that. So thank you very, very much for coming back and forth with all the extra comments and going and talking to other people and seeking more information around what it was that was needed to be changed. Yeah, it's great, and looking forward to seeing it implemented now. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sophie. Bob?
Yeah, just to say thanks very much. And to those that don't know, this has been going on for a lot of years. It's caused a lot of angst in the community with different opinions, and with the wilding pine eradication all got in the middle of it, and people weren't sure whether they had to take it off their own properties and all sorts of things. So I think this has cleared a lot of it up, and thanks to the staff.
Great, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. And standing orders, adding in the fact that we can meet and count as a quorum member when we come and Zoom into the meeting. Moved, thank you. Deborah and Phil, any comments or questions? All those in favour say aye. Oh, there was Nicole, sorry. Long meeting, I'm trying to get through for our PX. Sorry, Nicole.
I'll take my time then.
Yeah.
Just with the changes. So the changes are on, so the proposal is to do the changes which are on 483 of our agenda. There's just a few spelling mistakes that I think probably need to be sorted out first.
That's fine. We could make the amendments if the councillors are happy that I'll amend them spelling mistakes.
People happy that the spelling mistakes be done after we approve it? Yes? Is there other things, Nicole?
No, sorry, I just mentioned that because it is actually an official thing, recommend part of the recommendation. I'm pedantic like that, as you well know.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you all. That brings us to the end of the public part of today's meeting. We'll adjourn for 15 minutes and begin again at 2:40 in public excluded.